I don't know why it's like, okay, so this might mean, okay, so here. Let's hope that it start working a little bit. I'm going to be like looking on my other screen to ensure that is in fact working. Hopefully there should be no reason why it shouldn't be. But you guys are kind of like in a fun space. You guys have both like started okay, here. Okay, here we go. It's coming through. All right, this is making me feel
Awesome.
better. Okay, go live. Like I always get a slight panic when I don't see it going live because I'm like, is it? Is it working? I'm like, let's make
Yeah.
sure it is. Um, okay, perfect.
Yep,
All
I
right,
see
there we
it as
go.
well.
Okay, perfect. We got some people live and everybody that are joining live. All right, awesome. Um, you guys, I'm excited for this conversation. For anybody that hasn't, that doesn't know, Jonathan is actually my brother. And so this is always, like, I kind of had to convince him. I was like, come on. I'm like, let's go have this conversation. I feel like you're in this perfect space where you're actually, where you're working on something. Then I feel like there's like a fun conversation to be had from it. You guys both, so Ian and Jonathan, you guys both have products also that have some AI technology components. Before actually getting into like the core of this conversation, I guess my question to you both is like, is this a kind of an exciting time in your perspective from a technology space to like be building and starting kind of companies and products with like this technology available to kind of power it? Ian, I'd like to start with you there.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've been doing kind of AI related. We were calling it more machine learning back in the day, for maybe almost 10 years now. So it was a lot of math back when I started. But what's really cool about it is, just the speed at which you can bring things to life. So, it used to be, tons of pre-work of like model building, and then you got to, clean through the data, and it was just like a ton of stuff you had to do. And now it's like, I have an idea, I can, just play around with a couple models and just launch something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan, where's your head around it?
It's fascinating. I think that's probably the best word I can use. I've been working on my product for about 2 years now. I've been playing the game, the trading card games for well over 10, 15 years. But actually coming into building a product, now I had an idea, and with the being able to leverage the technology around artificial intelligence and large language models, and really everything that comes with it has just been super exciting. I'm learning a lot too,
Oh,
so
yeah.
and I'm learning a lot from AI because I'm having conversations with the AI to help figure out how to do everything, right? Because it is, to some degree, it's somewhat new to me, but yeah,
You
it's
guys are
it's
both kind of
exciting.
an interesting set because I think you guys come from a technology background, and I'll get into Ian and Jonathan's formal introductions, but like you guys both come from like a technical background. So then taking that kind of knowledge and layering on kind of this new technology, and I think there's a conversation on LinkedIn around AI taking jobs and everything. And honestly, I'm not convinced that it's not going to take some jobs, but also at the same time, I think it's also going to add more jobs into the mix. So it's like I started thinking about this last night around like people, if you're at least curious and interested in like, can look into things, but this whole vibe coding thing and kind of building some of these agents and seeing kind of what's actually happening. It's like I think that there's going to be this new industry and this new workforce and new job descriptions that we've never even considered coming up. Oh, in the
Well,
chat,
yeah, I mean, to
hey
that
Jay
degree,
Brown.
to that point, and I apologize. I know we'll get into lots of other stuff too, but like nowadays, like no one, people that are going into the workforce have to understand how AI works and have to understand how they can potentially leverage it to not only support and supplement the work that they're doing, but how are their competitors using it? How can the business grow with the
Yeah,
support of AI tools? Because it's not going away anywhere, right?
yeah.
It's only going to keep growing faster and faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're talking about scaling fast, kind of in the age AI era. So today I actually have two awesome speakers with me. Joining us is Ian Garrett. He is our mentor for the day. Ian is the founder of SendTurtle, an AI infrastructure expert. Ian is the co-founder and CEO of SendTurtle, a platform that helps businesses grow and by turning secure file sharing into trackable, insight-driven experience. With a military background in cybersecurity, PhD research in AI, he is passionate about helping founders stay secure while keeping AI cost complexity under control. Jonathan Domanus, my brother, is founder and CEO of CardMill, recently raised $2 million via Kickstarter for an AI-powered card sorting platform, building consumer technology to help collectors manage, value, and verify their collections, navigating the challenges of scaling B2C AI infrastructure with Kickstarter backers. Excited to get their product. I mean, I think that there's so many exciting opportunities and with what's just happening in this AI landscape. I love that you guys both have companies that ultimately leverage kind of AI capabilities. And this is actually why I kind of thought this pairing was really going to work really well. Because Ian, you're with, kind of documentation. Jonathan, you're with the trading cards themselves. So like, let me ask you this, because we're talking about, scaling fast. And I think that's actually really, really challenging. So Ian, can you, like, your business, like, there's been different businesses in the past that have leveraged kind of like scanning and sorting and sending capabilities, but like you've added this additional layer of intelligence on top of it. So let me ask you, like 10 years ago, was your business even possible?
Yeah, so great question. So what we've done is really just brought, kind of like you said, like what's existed already in the market and just took it to the next level. So was it possible to bring a product like ours to market 10 years ago? Absolutely. But did it require just so much more scale before it became useful? Yes. So what I mean by that is, if you think about what we do, so at the super kind of, if you take it all the way, to the least amount of technology part of it, which is just like, hey, let's send a file from one person to the next person. So, you could do that like an email attachment. There's like transfer solutions. So we're one of those transfer solutions. And then on top of that is where we start adding all the cool stuff. So on top of that layer is some analytics. So there's there's tools out there that'll send a file, and there's other tools out there that'll run analytics based off of how people are sending those files. So that's where we start to get into the more and more cool stuff. And then where we go even beyond that, in addition to being able to add cooler and cooler analytics, we then say, okay, in today's day and age, it's 2025, we don't have enough time in the day to sort through all the data that we're getting. So we are just drowning in just raw data and analytics. So what we've done is then take all those cool analytics and then use AI to leverage doing the analysis for you, essentially, and tell you what do you actually do with that information. So for what that looks like for us is to say like, hey, you should send a follow-up email in 2 days because the way that they read your first page, they read your second page, they got stuck on your third page, they were no longer interested, so hey, you should do something about that. But normally that would be you and I just sitting there and think, I think they did this, and this. So again, before it would have taken us to collect all that data, us to run the models, us to derive those insights, to then deliver to customer. But now with the existence of the existing models, we're able to just leverage what's been done out there and add on top of it.
Can I ask to supplement to that? And Jonathan, I don't know if you have a question for Ian, but did you is this all like your proprietary technology?
Oh, sorry, for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely use a combination as well. So some of it is in-house. Well, yeah, so it really depends on which part of it. I would say, and this is kind of what one of the items I wanted to bring up with Jonathan is, you really want to focus on, for the product in its entirety. In the beginning, you can try to build it all yourself, but often that's not the best way to go to market. from a couple different perspectives. One is some people have dedicated, their entire careers to building out certain tools. It's just sometimes best to use what they've built. And then the other piece of it is, there's just not enough time in the day to put it all together. So I like to always say the part that needs to be proprietary is like the why behind your product. So like what is the true differentiator about what you do, and what is the backbone of your product? Like that should be, you should really have your fingers in all those pies. It should be very, ideally that's very proprietary. And then all the kind
Well,
of like
that makes the
how,
product, that makes the core of
right, right,
who
right.
you
And then
are,
all the
and
kind of
it really
auxiliary or
defines
the, even
everything.
the how, like how do we actually go about doing some of this stuff? Like all those can be, either SDKs or APIs or, various plugins or frameworks that have existed. At the end of the day, those are the things that you could swap out. Eventually you can build it in-house. Eventually you could swap it out for a better version that's more expensive. But it's not going to change the core. Even if it makes your product way better, it's not going to change the core of like who you are as a company.
I like that. I
Well,
really
so
like that. And I only because I've seen it from like some vantage point. It's like I think at least with what John's done with like CardMill is actually quite special because it's all like found like it's all like it's individual people that have backed it. It's like and I'll just to add some, I guess color commentary. Like when Jonathan initially started talking about CardMill, I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. I was like, don't do it. I was like, white label, Alibaba, go find something. Don't build it. I, like literally, that's like kind of what my perspective was. And so to your, but like, he's like, no, I have something special here. He's like, I absolutely know it. He's like, so if I may, because in Garrett, Garrett, Ian, I feel like there's actually a lot that we can actually talk to what you just said. But like Jonathan, I'd like to pose the same question to you. 10 years ago, CardMill, do you feel like this product was even possible?
Um, yes, to a degree. Products have been out there that can handle moving cards and taking pictures of of something, right, and then placing them somewhere. When you really break down what CardMill does, I'm taking a stack of cards. I'm moving them into position. I'm having a camera that takes a picture of it, and then I'm sending that information to learn, to an AI to be able to identify what the card is. And then after that, the machine makes a decision on what to do with it and place it somewhere. So the machine functionality that's been around for ages. The identification of the cards, that's something that has grown tremendously like over the last few years with the explosion of AI models, right? As Ian was saying, there were, there's a lot of, machine learning, algorithms and models out there that existed that, could do a variety of things. But, you know, at the core, what we do is we analyze, different components and different parts of the image of the card. Now, what I can do is we can also determine, the bounds of the card. We can hone in on individual, parts of the picture where I think that was a little bit more difficult to do 10 years ago. The technology was there to be able to handle the recognition and then finding, the patterns in the image to be able to make a prediction on what the card is, but it's to the degree that I can do it now and get essentially sub millisecond responses and identifications that are well over 90, 95+% confidence. That's technology I think that has grown much more now than it has would have been available 10 years ago. It would have taken a much larger algorithm to be able to do what we're able to do today.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that, like
Yeah.
the size of the size of the code, like the size of the product. You're like, can it function? Can it function on like a regular person's like
Right.
Wi-Fi?
Right.
So,
Well, and then also, I will also throw out that there have been some amazing strides in hardware technology as well. So when we're talking about circuit boards, for instance, right? So I was meeting with our engineering team recently, and he's showing me a picture of this little circuit board that's about this big, right? Like a 3 by 4 inch square. It has integrated on it Wi-Fi. It has Bluetooth. It has a camera. It has lights, like LED lights for taking pictures, and it does identification for some. It was unrelated to my product, but it was something similar that they're working on. And in this small little 3 by 4 inch little rectangle handles all of the processing power. 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have been able to build something that small and be able to build a desktop version of my competitors' machines.
Well, so what's that's super cool. What is so what's the what are some of the main core challenges that you're experiencing right now?
Well, so Ian, you kind of started touching on it a little bit, but it's where it's finding the balance between leveraging third-party solutions and systems that are out there and done well, right, versus building everything in house. Because one of the things that I feel has allowed me to be successful in building CardMill and having a successful Kickstarter is that I'm not just an expert in my product. I'm the expert in my product, right? And I bring in teams to be able to help me be even more of an expert on it, or bring in outside department engineers that are better at maybe doing some of the industrial design or some of the electronics components of it than I am. But as a founder, it's always been important to me to be the one that sort of does everything and owns everything. And I guess I'm kind of going into two different questions here, because it's the first question is really how do you find the balance between third-party systems and homegrown systems and still being able to maintain enough control, but then also how do we leverage people around us to be able to help support and supplement the efforts, so that I'm not having to spend 6, 7, 8 hours every night working on stuff, doing the founder stuff during the day, and then doing the all the extra stuff at night. So I guess it's kind of like two questions, but it's a lot to starting up a company, especially an electronics business.
And I feel like you've got some
I'm gonna
battle
pause
scars.
there.
I know you've worked for the government cybersecurity, but so
Yeah, so I
what's
mean,
fun to do? I don't even know where to go with this question, because it's that's a
Right,
lot of stuff.
right.
But I'm I feel like
Why
you
don't
know.
we?
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like Ian knows what you need to hear, aside from what the question actually is.
yeah. Well, I would say first and foremost, each of us have a superpower, right? So we all have whatever our superpower is, and I think it's most important to just make sure that that is the number one thing you're bringing to the team, because ultimately none of us can be the best at everything. So
Mhm.
ultimately, but the product needs the especially as a small team. I think that's kind of really what's important about startups is you can't really afford to have anyone that isn't like an A player. So
Right.
ultimately the product needs a bunch of superheroes. You only have one superpower, so you need to really find the people that have the superpowers to fill in for the product that you don't. So you might be above average, at pretty much, let's say, all of it, and then you have a couple different areas that you were just like the rock star at. So it's tempting. It is tempting to say well, I'm pretty good. I'm better than most at all of this stuff, so I'm just gonna go ahead
Or
and
you have
do
to
all of it.
train other people to do other things too. Let's
Yeah.
add that to
Right.
the mix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And well, then that's every person you bring on as an inefficiency. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I think another key thing to think about is, well, for one, identifying, areas that you're weak is that's where you want to bring in the talent. Which it sounds like, you said you're like, hey, like the actual control design, like that's not, I gotta supervise it because ultimately nobody knows
Right.
it like the founder knows it. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty details, and then kind of beside that, also kind of tangential, is there's certain tasks that you're doing, and this comes down to resourcing too, though. Is a certain tasks you're doing that are just not honestly like worth your time doing, and it's
Yeah.
tempting to do because when you're when you're resource constrained, it's like, well, these are low level tasks that I don't mind doing. It's like, I don't think any of us are gonna sit around and saying like, hey, I'm too good for any given task. It's a
Well, like,
startup
let
to
me, I mean,
startup,
let me
everyone's
ask you this
doing
again. Like,
everything.
Right.
what have you stopped doing for that reason, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I mean, so for us, I think the first one came down to like bookkeeping.
Huh.
So, I was like, bookkeeping is an easy activity.
Yeah.
It's tedious, but I know exactly every single thing that's happening from a financial perspective. Um, Feels like I should be able to do it, but honestly, I just found that it was taking so much time out of the week that I was like, what am I doing? Like, there's
Yeah.
people who are experts at this, and they're experts at the financial accounting system. So it's like I'm not an expert on the system, and I'm not an expert bookkeeper. I'm just like can do bookkeeping. So that was like the number one thing to go was just like anything related to
You're the second
finance.
person that's told me that.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
honestly, like when
Yeah.
it comes to the back office activities like finance or anything legal, like the best thing that I was told when we first started was make your product the disruptive tech, very innovative thing. Make your business operations as vanilla as and boring as possible. Like you
Right.
want to have
Yeah.
nothing innovative at all in your business operations, like your finance, your legal,
It just
your
needs to work.
formation. Like make sure it's
You
all
mean I
basic.
shouldn't go? You mean I shouldn't go build my own accounting software to
Yeah.
to do
Well, you'd
exactly
be
what I'm telling
surprised
you
how
to
many
do?
founders tell me they're like, "Oh yeah, I just built like a custom CRM," and it's like, "Why?
Right.
Why did you build a custom CRM? Just use the
Right.
Yeah.
CRM."
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
hilarious. You're like, you realize you could have just put that time into something else, like that moves
Yeah.
the needle. I mean, I also think that there's, I started working with this new client, and like my guiding principle is ultimately like getting them leads. Like from a marketing, I'm like, leads are my number one priority. And if it's not associated with leads, I don't care. Like, oh, you guys,
Yeah.
there's something else you guys want me to look at. Like, does this drive leads? If it does, sure, I'll do it. If it doesn't, I'm not. Because it's also a limited scope and everything. I'm like, so that's my guiding principle as well. So, like, if you were to like from a, so you're, I feel like, does this support the product? Does this make the product better? But also, I mean, for me, it's like if I, it's the product and then it's also sales. I mean, you're not, Jonathan, you're not really in like the sales mode at the moment. You're in building mode, I feel like. So yeah, everything should support
Right.
the product.
Well, and it's interesting because while I'm not currently in sales mode, I was in heavy sales mode leading up to and during the Kickstarter. So like, I was working there like during my actual Kickstarter campaign. I think I went to bed before 2 a.m. maybe about 3 or 4 times, right? Like throughout the entire month of the Kickstarter campaign. So like I made it a mission, and it was important for me as well because for me, I don't want to build just a product. I want to also build a community around my product. I am the target audience for the product that I'm building, right? And so it was important for me for other people to know that. So I made it a mission to reply to every single comment, question, email, social media post as close to the same day as possible as I could, and it was exhausting, right? And then got through the Kickstarter campaign, and now we're in build mode, and once in a while I feel like I'm not doing enough, right? When like I've got people like my wife, for instance. She's not only is she an amazing graphic designer and did all the graphic design work for CardMill, but she's also taken on a lot of the research and analysis, and she sort of spearheaded a lot of that. And there are times where she'll be like, "Hey, I need your opinion or idea on this," and like I'll be talking and be like, "I just want to make a decision," and then she'll challenge me, and I'm like, "Well," and then I have to like find that balance, be like, "Oh wait, yeah, I'm not doing this alone anymore, right? I've got these good I've got my village basically, people that are helping where they need to help. So now I'm not in sales mode, per se. I'm still, because we still haven't delivered our product. So, to a degree, I'm still, wanting to make sure that, we keep all of our backers and keep everyone happy so that, they're happy. So I guess that's to a degree, a bit of a sales, but yeah, the main sales part, luckily is over. because it was a lot of work and it was exhausting, but it was a really cool experience though.
So let me ask something, like, if I can interject, because it's like I think I'm clear on like SendTurtle's kind of value proposition. It's like, like really like making, like simplifying complexity of like documentation and everything, like getting insights from that. I feel like, for CardMill, like, yes, there's a product, but ultimately, like, the value proposition is like the information, how people are able to like sort and customize their cards and everything. So like, if you're delivering on, like, I guess, how's everything going on, like, delivering, I guess, on that promise of making sure like that people, well, so I know that there's like the actual organization of the cards, and then there's the actual, I feel like a big Excel file or some version of like an interface of like all of this information of like the cards that people have in their deck. So like, how's, I guess, what I'm trying to get is like, how is actually building out of like your software going to like
Yeah.
get to like those insights for people? Like, are you, because I feel like you're a software developer by trade as well.
Right. Right. So, I'm a software developer by trade, and I have another member on our team that's spearheading and owning the portal development. And so, I guess this is probably one of the areas that I felt like I could do it. Right. I've been in software development my entire career, but it was also something that I recognized that if I'm building everything, I'm not going to necessarily be able to focus on growing the business either. So I have another partner that coming in. He's owning the portal development, and he's also a much better developer than I am. So that that also helps. That's definitely one of the areas where I recognize that I could use a little bit of help. So he's helping with building out the web portal. We've got engineering teams helping building out the physical product, and it's yeah. I'll pause there. I could just keep rambling, keep going on and on, but yeah, that's I'm starting to sort of like split out and offload. Offload's but the wrong word. I'm starting to
Specialize.
recognize the benefit of not owning everything anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen when talking to a lot of founders, because I myself have an engineering background, kind of came from that route, and a lot of engineering founders, I think, have a hard time letting go of product building, just because that's
Right.
like what we are comfortable with, that's what we know, that's what got us most likely interested in the first place, of why I'm starting the company.
It's why it's how it got us here in the first
Yeah,
place,
yeah.
so
But
yeah.
it's ultimately the challenge is nobody knows the value prop like the founder does, and the founder and CEO specifically. Even if you're bringing on business support, like ultimately, like you're the one that like truly like viscerally feels like the pain point, like understanding why the people have the pain point, and you're the best person to communicate that. So as the business grows, you need to be like less and less involved in actual product building, just like product supervising essentially. Like the nuances of building, essentially and this is gonna be hard, is one day you're, and this is where I am, and it honestly makes me sad all the time. It's like one day you're gonna have no idea how like the inner workings work. Like you're gonna be like, I don't know, I don't know, and
Right.
I have to go. You got to talk to my CTO. I don't know. And again, as
Yeah.
an engineer,
Well,
it hurts, but that's the way it is.
and so that's one of the things that like I was curious about, right? Like how do you and maintain the product integrity of what your vision was without introducing all the technical debt that comes along with potentially giving other people control over it. Because I mean, as software developers, we don't. Okay, I don't know about you. I don't have all. I knew that I don't have all the answers, right? And I would, when I'm building sites and I'm building, an application, I'm grabbing information, online. I'm researching. I'm checking with people that might be able to, might have gone through, some of what I'm doing already. And so how do you ensure the integrity, I guess, of your application, what your core vision was?
Yeah, it comes down to yeah, because like it's tough because it's like you can't, the more you're in the weeds, the less you're able to focus on growth. But
Yeah.
as you mentioned, if you let go of the product entirely, then it's going to go off on its own thing, and it's going to not be what your vision is. So
Right.
it comes down to again like the team you put together and then initially is like so important. Um, and it can't just be anybody, right? Like whoever you, for one, you need to have somebody who is like the point person for the product, like development. Like essentially figure out who the CTO is, and you're gonna like that person is gonna own it. And then the hardest part is letting them own it and not trying to be like, okay, well, actually, this is a better way to do it. You need to do it my way.
Yeah.
But
Right.
again, it's tough, right? Like, because you're gonna be like that if but you have to find a person who is fully aligned with your vision, and then it's your job essentially to pump that person full of your vision constantly and making sure that you're constantly, even if it's two of you, you'll be
Right.
surprised because it was just my brother and I for a while. And it's just like if we didn't talk for a little bit, just off on our own thing, then it was like I would look back and be like, whoa, 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 whoa! This doesn't look like what I thought it
Yeah.
would look
This
like.
this isn't what I wanted, right? Well, and something that I've been noticing because being in like the early stages of of our product development, we're going through upgrades and we're wanting to bring in people from the community that have been part of the Kickstarter to be able to leverage a lot of their support, right? And so one of the things that we're doing is we're putting out polls and we're asking questions, we're getting their feedback, and we're having a conversation earlier today about
Ian, real
one
quick,
of the
let me just
polls.
interject real quick. So the Kickstarter launch, which I thought like, it's like, Jonathan, it's like you have so much love for your community and you want to give everything. I mean, like literally they start with, hey, here's the product. You can customize it with 5 different colors and here's all these different add-ons. And I was like, I come from a brand management background. So I'm like, when he showed me all these different packages and offering, I was like, "Oh my God, this is manufacturing complexity." I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
Oh, I know.
I
Yeah,
was like,
we
"You gotta
learned
cut
this.
these colors in half at least."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I can't." He's like, I already offered this stuff." I was like, "Okay, well, we'll just let somebody else say it to you." And like, and I'm not saying that I was right, but it's it's like it's I think it's a natural place for a founder to be like, I want to give my community everything possible and everything that I possibly could want, but then like it's on some, and I don't know where things stand like on CardMill and how many like I literally don't know what's happening there, but it's like it's like that is like manufacturing inefficiency. And so call it coding, call it like, creating products and shipping it like tangible or digital or otherwise. It's like, it's just additional complexity. So I'm personally like a huge advocate of two things: lean startup methodology and MVP methodology. What is the minimal product that you can start with to like prove, market fit and everything? But it's like, it's not 5 colors and it's not 5 different like, like sorting cases and all this other shit, to be
Right.
kind about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I absolutely agree as well because ultimately, and it's obviously a little harder. Yeah, when you're shipping software, it's like, hey, we can ship it. Oops, let me fix it. When you have a physical
Right.
product and you go through the manufacturing process, it's obviously a lot more. It's the iteration cycles are not as easy to ship out. But I absolutely agree that I think the MVP is because I think the MVP is important for two reasons. One is, as you've mentioned, you can get to market quicker with it because ultimately you're just shipping less. But I think more importantly, well, equally important maybe, but the other side of the coin is that it really forces you to only deliver what is the true value prop and not all the extra bells and whistles. Because I think the bells and whistles is like where you can get hung up on things and get tripped up on things, and it just adds all this complexity. And you're a small team, right? Like you just can't afford to have that complexity. So when you
Right.
distill it down to its true MVP, then it's like, what are we really doing? It's like, are the colors, for example, like, are the colors really why people are buying it? It's like, no. It's like people are buying it, and even honestly, if you say it only worked on like Magic the Gathering, and you're like, it doesn't work on any other trading cards, it just works on Magic the Gathering, like you would isolate obviously, but then you would find that core group of people who are like, I have 10,000 cards and I want to
Right.
build decks quick, and I have like a phone app that I manually scan. Like this
Oh,
thing
God.
saves my life.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and let me ask you this, because I think this is going to be relevant for this conversation as well. It's like, I mean, that's even like the physical part of it, but like, let's talk about the software part of it, like the feature trap. It's like, so, I mean, I feel like there's plenty of like new, you're like, oh, oops, but like we can like reship the software and everything. But like, what about it's like adding additional features that like aren't necessary, like, that they're not necessarily like, a multiplier for like increasing market share or what, like, do you have, what's,
Well,
how much do you add, how much do you add to like service like your core base and everything, and and at what point is it about like increasing sales, and what point is it about like really like, you know, adding value to like your existing customer base?
We actually have a really good example that we just did for this. So I'm like always paranoid over this is actually really what I find all the time. It's like people building product are like, oh yeah, the marketing and sales is the problem. Messaging's off, copy's off, the product's good. And then the growth side of the house is like, yeah, our messaging's great. The product just isn't delivering. Like it needs more features. So, and again, this is even happens in a small team, which is so funny to me. Um, but yeah, so I'm like paranoid over just chasing features where it's like, again, like as an engineer, it's like, oh yeah, of course, if I could just build one more thing, they'll buy it. Because like people, especially when we were selling more enterprise, it was like, oh, if you just had, then we'll totally buy it. And then you have to go build the thing, you come back, and they're like, nope. So it's like we got burned on that a couple times over the years. So we don't do that anymore. And then so our example now is. For the longest time, when we built SendTurtle, people, we started hearing people say, "This is great, but I think I need e-signatures." And then so for me, like that, it was a big lift for us to add e-signatures. So I was like, I don't know about that. So I was
Yeah.
resistant for a long time because I said, I don't want to go out there and just chase the e-signature crowd. Like, oh, we'll totally do it. Because I was like, there's plenty of e-signature platforms out there. Why do we need one too? But ultimately, it came down to people saying, I send out a contract, I send out a proposal, I see that they opened it, I see how they engage with it. This is all great, and then it comes to the point where I need to close the deal, and then I got to go put it into another platform, and that process is killing it. And then so pretty much once I heard that happen, a use case
Yeah.
happen enough times where I was like, okay, this is actually what we thought was the MVP actually wasn't really the MVP because this core feature takes it like makes it go end to end in
It's
a
a
way that
friction
we
point
didn't.
then. Yeah, yeah. If it's not included, that makes sense. Because then at that point, if they're looking at the contract, they're in market for the product. You want to make it easy for them to
Right.
sign whatever that offer is. Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah.
Well, and I would think as well that at least from what we're doing on CardMill is that we have our core bit of functionality, and we're constantly getting requests and constantly getting people asking for, well, can we do this? Can we do that? And we'll add just about everything we can to like a list, and we'll get to it kind of over time. But then there's also beyond the core functionality, we do plan to potentially release some premium features that can also be an additional revenue stream, right? That the core features is kind of what you get with the product, and then looking at ways to be able to ensure longevity. What are the features that we can do that might be a subscription based service, right, without charging the subscription for the main component of what they're getting. And because that's the other thing is that like right now, like with the Kickstarter backers, we are giving them scanning and card identification with at no additional cost. So like all of our, I mean,
Forever.
forever. Yeah. I mean, well, let me rephrase. There is a cost to it, but
Okay,
I'm
like I was
paying
just
for
like
it.
when he said this offer, I was like, "What?" I
No,
mean, I
right. I
also,
mean,
where my head's going is like, where are you storing all these? I mean, that's like I feel like for another day, but like the scans, the information, the data, the bits, and everything. I'm like, that is like an obscene
yeah.
amount of information, in my opinion.
Right, and we're paying for it. We're covering the cost for that, and we're budgeted for it. And
Yeah.
I mean, storage is generally speaking, storage is cheap, right? If you save stuff properly, it can be inexpensive. But you're right. I mean, but it was also one of the biggest selling points for a lot of our audience, because every other competitive product that is out there today, even some that are as recent that launched this summer, every single product has a recurring fee on it. And for like the everyday player and collector, which is who my target audience was, it doesn't make sense to spend hundreds or thousands or more dollars on a device or a machine just to have to keep paying into it just to be able to use the service, right? So that was something that was a big value add for our users, and we're fine financially, but I think that getting some premium features is something that will allow us to ensure long-term success as well.
So we got like, I just want to make sure we like get to a couple things too. So Ian, like you've done like this, I mean, you've done this a few times. Like you have such a deep expertise in, leveraging also AI to support your organization and just kind of the understanding around it. So like because, we have people watching, like if somebody's building something that is potentially like has like an AI infrastructure layer, like what would you like, how like if you were to do it over again or whatever, like start like what is that like what are like some initial learnings that you've gotten, and I mean, and Jonathan, I'm sure you've also gotten a number of different learnings in this like short amount of time. So like I'd pose the same question to you as well, and not that we're done. I just feel like these questions can have a long answer. So
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe it's controversial, but I have a pretty strong opinion
go there,
on
yes.
on the cost of AI. So I mean, it is expensive, yes, but I'm willing for people to fight me on this later. Hit me up on the internet, but I think AI laziness is really what is costly, and like if you were to really put in the hard engineering work, building out AI systems doesn't have to be costly. Like for example, and it really is a trade-off though. I mean, ultimately, like yeah, it's just saying like hey, if you're being lazy, it costs expensive. But I mean, the reality is the benefit of what we have, in 2025 for with these models is that kind of going to the beginning is like hey, you can launch things quick, you can test things out really quickly. Honestly, it goes to even vibe coding, right? Like you can vibe code something quickly, but as Jonathan, I know that you'll know this, and you'll feel this also pretty viscerally. Is if you were to just vibe code something and toss it out in the world, it's gonna be garbage.
Oh yeah,
like the enterprise level code is not designed to be vibe coded, right? But like a quick experiment, absolutely. You can launch an experiment, see how the users like it, and if they like it, then go back and fix it. And it's just like that with actual AI models. It's like you can go build something out there, launch it. It's gonna be expensive, but see if it matters. And if it does, go back and then essentially start picking apart your pipeline and building it out piece by piece. Because ultimately, like to start at the very easiest thing you can do is open up ChatGPT and say, "Do this thing for me." And here's a bunch of data, go analyze it or whatever.
right, right.
That's the most.
And we've done that.
Yeah, or let's say that, and then you pick the brand new model, right? So it's completely as easy as possible. Just text. You could do it on voice or whatever. That's the easiest version. If you were to do that at scale, that's going to be so expensive. But maybe a cheaper version of it is, hey, I know that based off of the way my users are dealing with this data, that I can actually pre-process this data in a way that I don't actually need the latest and greatest ChatGPT model or whatever. Like I can use an OpenAI model that's several years older, way cheaper, not as good, but because I did the hard work of pre-processing my data, it doesn't actually have to do a heavy lift to do what it needs to do, and you're saving tons of money already right there. And then again, going back to what Jonathan was mentioning, is like, hey, it's like we want to bring as much in-house as possible. It comes down to like let's say for actual CardMill. The challenge that was alluded to is that if there's any AI processing that requires any compute at internal, or let's say you're using AWS servers or whatever, That's a recurring cost for CardMill. But if the users have bought the product and they don't pay a recurring fee, then that's just like whatever you paid is just going to go down over time. The way to technically have solved that with in a vacuum is that if you were to have a model fully trained and have a model isolated onto that hardware, and it never reaches out, never touches their servers, then that would never cost him anything. But that's very
Right.
difficult, very hard.
Yeah.
Potentially the hardware is very expensive to run that compute. So
Right.
like again, that's the cheap thing, the very hard thing on the other end is very easy, very expensive. We
I
got to
like
find
your
somewhere in
thinking
between.
though about it. I mean, I think that I think you just pose an interesting point to consider. And I think whatever you do from that, I think that's a really interesting take in terms of like taking something that is potentially older and with like the firm guardrails and everything and making it work for, for whatever your product is. I'm totally there with
Right.
you.
Yeah.
We're also, and I mean, to your point as well, Ian, like integrating some of these, models and into potentially the device itself for image recognition. We're planning to do that to some degree, but I'm not going to be able to do, the entire database of, all cards across all TCGs we're doing into a small unit without, like you were mentioning, having a much more powerful processor to be able to manage it all. So it's also difficult because we don't yet know exactly what everyone has, which is our device is supposed to let them know what they have, right? Where like if I knew that, like, okay, if I knew that 40% of my audience are only Magic the Gathering, and I know that they will never do anything but Magic the Gathering in the future. Well, okay, maybe I can load just the Magic the Gathering, image for them on their device, right? But now they're locked in; they can't do anything else beyond that, and they just spent whatever 3, 4, 5, $100 or more on a device that has one purpose that may or may not work for them in the future. Same thing goes for all the other games, like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and whatnot. So what we're doing is, at least for the initial version of the machine, is we're going to put, as much of the processing, within our network and on our servers, and then, maybe offload some of the ancillary identifications, like OCR types of technology that does. I don't need to know exactly which card it is, but maybe I'm just sorting it alphabetically, which in that case, I just need to know what the letters are of the card name, right? I don't have to do a full image process for that. So we're going to try to load some of that stuff on the unit. And I think that, over time we might find that we might be able to leverage side loading, more of this functionality into the device, and hopefully, like, the it's enough of just being a software update that we can just push out a software update. But we're going into it expecting that all of this is going to cost a significant amount of money for processing, and then I'm hoping we can scale it down from there.
Yeah.
This is interesting because it's like, Ian, like every single document ultimately that's like running through your system is unique. Like I'm gonna kind of bet on it that like everything is different. But like for Jonathan, for you, it's like you have, I believe from like a vertical standpoint, like if it's magic, you go very deep on that but it's like for Ian,
Yeah.
it's like, it's very broad because it's like every single document that's likely like going through their system is going to be unique for every single kind of customer
Yeah.
and client relationship and everything. So,
Well, Ian's also, I think, in a unique, has a unique challenge where, like, if with e-signatures, you can't maintain similar documents and consider that to be one, right? I mean, if someone's signing a document, that's a document, and you have to have that that core identifier on there. With our with magic cards, right? I mean, if one person scans in one version of a magic card and then the next 20 people scan in that same version of the magic card, I know what that card is, and so maybe I can leverage some cash to be able to, that's whether in the, servers or on the systems to be able to quickly identify it without it going all the way up to the network. So
Let
those
me
are all
ask you
things
this
that we're
though, real
trying to
quick.
figure
I mean,
out.
because
Yeah.
Jonathan, I know, like, I mean, because in your case, in terms of, I mean, and now we're getting kind of like, well, technical, but it's like, what if, different qualities of the, like, the card and everything? I mean, like, it's like,
Yeah.
and how did, you're talking about caching and everything, but like, if something is,
Yeah.
one card is damaged, and one card's perfect, and one card's sleeved, and one card's blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think
Right.
there's so many nuances to that.
Yeah, so our core offering is not handling card condition grading, so I'm not worried about that today.
Okay.
It is something we want to, eventually potentially offer, but there's also a lot of personal bias that comes into play when we're identifying a condition of a card. But to some degree, the condition of damaged card, for instance, might impact the recognition of the card itself as well. So that's all things that we have to try to figure out kind of as we go. But yeah, they're interesting challenges.
Ian, where do
All
you think,
solvable, but
where do you think, like, in the, maybe next year or two, like, where do you feel like, you know, like AI infrastructure for support of like new business owners, like where do you, like, where do you see that going? Like, I realize it's kind of vague, but I'm
Yeah, I
curious, like,
mean,
you have such a
honestly,
deep level of knowledge.
yeah, I think it's gonna go in the way kind of what I mentioned is the a way to reduce costs. The topic of how do I price my AI native platform like comes up like anytime I'm in it. If there's two or more CEOs, it's gonna be a topic that comes up because ultimately, like everyone's like, oh, we got to jump on this. We got to add, slap some AI on it, um, which for better or for worse, right? And we've all been engaged in versions that don't need to exist. But it comes down to, it's like, hey, this is not going away, and there's just going to be more and more use cases for it. Like we can't just keep spending more. And honestly, a lot of these AI businesses are essentially being subsidized by their, by their financing. Once they actually have to turn a profit, like it's only going to get more expensive. So I think where it's going to go from an infrastructure standpoint is that the companies are going to make it easier. Whether that's new startups, whether that's the companies out there, it's going to make it easier for people to add AI capabilities into their business. In a way that helps them to break it down, break their pipeline down. Honestly, it's going to go similar back to companies that have been using AI for a long time have ML ops pipelines. If you talk to a lot of companies that have just slapped on AI today, they're going to be like, I don't know what an ML ops pipeline is.
I don't know what an ML ops pipeline is, but
Yeah, so
everyone's saying that they're using AI
companies
today.
that'll help break all that down so that as a business owner, as a CEO, you don't have to be like, I don't know what this is. It's like, that's fine. You can, this is how you can reduce costs. And then another, just I was thinking that for Jonathan, this is more of like a business model thing, but well, I think two things. One is and definitely correct me if I'm wrong from your customer base, but like I suspect it could be the case that people that collect often like heavily invest in, like, why they buy CardMill is because there's like one trading card game that they specifically are trying to sort and identify. Like they might have collected a couple different ones, but there's like one that they're like they have 1,000, 10,000 cards on that they're trying to work on. It could be the case that either if there's one, like let's say it's just Magic is like 40 to 60%, like even 50% or whatever, you could just say like, hey, Magic is getting you have unlimited usage, but if you want to add Pokemon, then either that's going to be recurring or like an add-on package that you're going to have to add that on. Or it could be you're like, let's say it's pretty split. You could say like, hey, you get to choose one game that comes unlimited usage, but if you want to add on more ones, then you have to sign up for a subscription or buy them in, buy an add-on pack or whatever. And that could help offset the reality that if they're tapping, your network all the time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I won't be able to do that for the Kickstarter people
Right,
because
right.
we've made different promises to them. But that's a very interesting approach to, other folks, right? Other people that, in the future, because we do plan to sell it, beyond, just the Kickstarter. So that's definitely something we'll keep in mind. I like that.
Yeah, and then otherwise, kind of like you mentioned, if you can't do it, then at the end of the day, just offer some more features that are just too good to pass up on your subscription.
Right, exactly. And the um and the cool thing about our community is everyone's like pretty much invested is pretty invested in it. Not everyone, right? But a lot of our like we have a really substantial Discord server. Almost 2,500 people have joined us there, and they're majority of them are conversing on a regular basis. So I feel like the community is going to inform a lot of what they want. But I've heard the thing, like you mentioned earlier, that asking, for the world and you go and build and there's like, okay, never mind, we're good, right? It's definitely
That'll
want
be
to avoid
interesting to
that.
find out, like,
Yeah.
because you'll be able to get into that, like, what are people actually using? And it's like,
Yeah.
and I think like you'll be able to. It's like, what functionality are people really wanting? I feel like you'll that'll come pretty soon.
Yeah.
I think.
They're very vocal too, so I have a feeling that they'll tell us what they
But the
want. If they
squeaky
don't
wheel
have
gets
something,
the
yeah,
squeaky wheel gets the
Yeah.
grease and everything. Doesn't actually mean it needs to get greased though. So
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually another thing that I found, it was honestly a shock when it finally dawned on me. But there's like so much that we added into product that I just was like, of course the base model needs that. Like the base, all these bells and whistles, like
Hmm.
to include even like support levels. It's like, of course it comes with that. That's all that comes in the cheapest tier. And then I
Yeah.
started doing competitor analysis and found that what we were selling at, $15 per user, um, like as we're like, oh, like that's got to be there. It's like they were selling for 65, $85, and I was like,
Wow.
oh, like those are just, I thought those were basic, like those are special features. And then so I realized, going back to the MVP, it's like you can actually pare the thing down way farther down than you
Okay.
thought to still deliver value. You never want to sacrifice delivering value, but like you can still deliver
Right.
that core value for way less. And then all those bells and whistles ultimately, can be the more premium package. Like colors, absolutely is a premium thing.
Right.
But any of those bells and whistles, like it's a good practice to list out every little feature and then just
Yeah.
pull over the ones that are truly core value.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I should go through that exercise. I like that.
And then every feature, try to break, like just try to break each feature down. Like you'll find like a web of it, but like
Yeah.
you'll do the features and you're like, I'm done. And then try to break those features down. And then like the goal being like try to find as many possible things as possible. And then
Okay.
just like push over to ones that are core offering.
Like a
Everything
family
else.
tree.
Yeah. Everything else is
Yeah.
your premium package.
Okay.
okay,
Cool.
I feel
Very
like
cool.
we've got time for like one more question. I mean, Jonathan, do you have a question for Ian that you wanna?
I mean, gosh, I mean, I've got, a million and one questions. I'm gonna have to reach out to you separately, but, what is, how do you, let me see. No, you've answered all of my questions. You really have. Like, I mean, I had to live,
Well, no,
one way
Ian,
or
honestly, I
another.
feel like you've got an interesting way to think about some of these things too, which was actually like, I guess, like my main takeaway. I was like, huh, like what an interesting way, like, frame it and think about it. So I guess, well, then here, do you guys like actually, would you have some listeners on, and this will be in like the recording when I distribute it more broadly. Would you guys like to kind of wrap up with a pitch? And Ian, I'd love to encourage people to go check out SendTurtle. So if you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we're over at sendturtle.com, and we solve for the problem of if you've ever sent a document like a proposal, a deck, or a contract and felt like you shot it into a black hole. So we let you know whether or not just that they open it, like most tools do, but we let you know, hey, they went to page one, they went to page two, they spent 35 seconds on page three. And then the AI part of what we do is we take all those analytics and metrics, and then we do analysis for you and let you know what to do about it. So, hey, you should follow up in 2 days with a follow-up email, talk about your
Nice.
pricing page, because that's where they dropped off on your contract.
Amazing. Jonathan?
That's fascinating. CardMill is an automated trading card scanner and sorter for the everyday player and collector. The what we're trying to solve is we're trying to give control to the everyday player and collector to understand what's in your collection, but then also give some order to the chaos and actually physically sort your physical cards.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you so much. I'm going to say bye to the live stream so you guys stay on. But catch us in 30 minutes on the last conversation of today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So here.